Hey, this is the first video in the Moviehippo challenge that I issued to myself, which is 365 movies in 365 days, with the big requirement being that I cannot have ever seen the film before, or the person I'm showing the film cannot have ever seen the movie before. So for example, if I'm showing my wife a film, if she hasn't seen it before, I get a pass. Generally though, it's going to be movies that I have never seen before. If you notice that I'm reading, it's because I don't know this information yet, and I'm sure I'm going to get better at this as this goes on since we're doing it for a whole year. But for now, I'm probably going to read a bit. There also might be some weird edits in there because I screw up sometimes. Anyways, I'm going to be uploading these videos every single Monday. For the first week, I only have 3 movies to talk about because we're only 3 days into the month of November. I will be posting links in the description below, so you can check out the IMDb pages for these films. So I guess we should get to it. The first film I'm going to talk about last, so I'm going to talk about the second and the third film. It gets confusing. The first film I'm going to talk about is called Empire State. It had a pretty limited theatrical run. It's now on Netflix, so you can watch it instantly. And it tells the true story of a New Yorker in the late 1970s who not only works for an armored car service, but intends to steal an incredibly large amount of money from it. I thought the film was a pretty easy watch. It's got Liam Hemsworth, who I like. It's got The Rock in it, Dwayne Johnson, who I also really like. So that made it a little bit more palatable. It's an okay story. It's a true story. Sometimes they don't always translate super well, but it's kind of interesting. It portrays characters in New York kind of like caricatures. They're a little cartoony. They're very brash. They've got really thick accents. I thought to myself, this is where stereotypes come from. These kind of movies with these kind of portrayals is sort of what gives us the stereotype of these big, loud, kind of I don't give a damn New Yorkers. It's also kind of predictable, but it also kind of showed how in the late 1970s America was sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel as a civilized society. We've cleaned up our cities and our culture a lot since then. There's a really striking image of the American flag. It's really tattered, kind of blowing in the wind, and it sort of summed up the thoughts of the characters who sort of felt like they've been gamed by the system, and so they're going to game the system back. I think people these days can still identify with that, but I don't know. It was an okay movie. It's worth checking out if you've got Netflix. The third film I watched was a documentary called Nerdcore Rising, and it follows the originator of a geek-inspired hip-hop genre called Nerdcore. MC Frontalot is heading out on his first tour, and he's trying to decide if nerd rap is going to become a full-time profession for him or if he's going to keep doing what he calls hustling web design. It's a pretty interesting idea. It's something that I didn't know much about, and it's only an hour and 19 minutes. But watching MC Frontalot and his crew kind of play these dive bars and clubs gets a little old after a while. However, just when I started thinking this movie's getting too long, it's right about an hour in, something really great happened. We finally got a glimpse into why this new genre of music is important. And it's sort of, while geeky or nerdy people embrace their social status now, it does come at a cost, especially when you're young. You get to see why nerds seek disconnection and why they feel outcast. MC Frontalot provides a voice for people who had no voice in this particular part of the music industry. And he starts a dialogue that expresses feelings that a lot of people don't feel brave enough to share. So it's a documentary that's fairly innocuous, but it has a subtle beauty to it. Even if it's only for one brief moment, it does make it worth watching. In the end, the vehicle is that the nerdcore genre is rising, but the message that's delivered is that you're not alone, and you too will rise up just by being yourself, which is kind of cool. So, the first film I watched, and sort of why I'm starting this 365-day challenge now in November, sort of all stems from the fact that I didn't want to wait. It seemed obvious to wait till the first of the year and do this as like a New Year's resolution or something, but I don't have a lot of patience, and so I didn't want to wait. I wanted to do it right away. But it kind of left me with a predicament of, I haven't done very much prep. What am I going to watch? How should I start it? And the fact that it's November kind of makes it easy to make it personal. November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. A lot of people know that's an issue that's really important to me. And I felt that maybe I should start this with something that's connected to my father. He died from pancreatic cancer about 4 years ago, so this should be a fitting way to start. But the film I chose, he hated it, and I wanted to know why he hated it. I also wanted to find out if, by the time the movie ended, I would hate it. So the backstory on this is when my father was in high school, he lied about his age so he could get a job working as a projectionist in the projectionist union in Oklahoma. He was 16 years old. He'd been dating my mother for about a year. And even at this young age, because he lied about his age, they started him working out in a XXX theater. Eventually, they kind of bounced him around to a drive-in and to some other theaters, and eventually they put him at the Edmonds Plaza in Oklahoma, where he was operating these big old ArcLight projectors running, first run movies pretty much. My mom would come up and visit him, and they would hang out in the projection booth, and he would play these movies over and over and over again. So he became very, very familiar with them. In 1970, the film Love Story came out, and he began running that film with Romeo and Juliet. So he was seeing these kind of very, overdramatic romance films. He saw Love Story and heard the lines over and over and over again, and eventually he learned to loathe that film. He eventually would come to say that if he had to watch Love Story one more time, he would slit his wrists, which, if anyone that is watching this knows or knew my father, they might find that a little surprising. I know firsthand that he was a pretty romantic guy. I mean, he loved the same girl and took care of her from the age of 15 till he died at the age of 55. So, that might be a weird sentiment to have heard from him. So, knowing that backstory is what am I going to think by the time this movie ends? So, a little bit of a spoiler here. It's not too much of a spoiler because it's part of the first line of dialogue from the film, so you're going to learn it right away. But Love Story starts by telling us the end, that the girl dies. In a lot of films, especially today, a film that starts this way is more about how that death came about. This movie, on the other hand, is about the life before that. And I think it's about what I personally believe the meaning of life is. The reason that we breathe and we get up in the morning is, I believe, to learn to love someone unconditionally and to be loved back in return. I think that's sort of the driving force behind humankind in the end. The movie itself is a little bit heavy-handed, especially when it comes to the dialogue. This is the film that brought us a super, super famous line, "Love means you're never having to say you're sorry." It's pretty saccharine. It's over-saccharine. But I think you can forgive moments like that because the characters aren't built on the sentiment. The characters are kind of harsh with each other. They call each other names. The Ryan O'Neal's character calls her a bitch multiple times in the film. It's not a relationship built on sappy old-time cliches. These aren't characters that fell out of a 1940s melodrama. Instead, these kind of super sweet moments are, like the famous line, they're a result of a love that two characters work really hard to maintain through honesty. And I think that's pretty worthy if you can come to understand that. So, you might be able to tell I liked the film. Looking back now, I'm not sure if my father ever gave much thought to the plot and any similarities it might have ended up sharing with his own life. I think many, if not most, young couples relate to the circumstances of living poor, maybe working in multiple jobs, sacrificing what you want to do to support the goals and dreams of the one you love. And perhaps as a teenager in love, you might find the idea of losing the girl you love an idea that you hate. Maybe you just can't stand the sappiness 300 times over and over again. That's possible too. This is not my Desert Island movie or anything, but I did think it was a pretty worthy film. It was a nice way to start the challenge. It let me think really fondly about my father. It allowed me to call my mom and ask her some questions about him, which is always a good thing. He is very missed every single day. And each month during this challenge, I'm going to focus one movie that is connected to him. It's going to be a movie that I've never seen, and sadly, I'm never going to get to watch with him. If you are interested in helping in the fight against pancreatic cancer, this is a good week to start. My mother's annual fundraiser where she does a walk. She has a team that does a walk for pancreatic cancer research and awareness. I will put a link in the description below so you can donate to her team. I would really appreciate it. It would mean a lot. I'll also throw another link below so you can find pancan.org really easily in case you're watching this after the event and you want to learn more about pancreatic cancer awareness or potentially still help. I also want to address the shirt that I'm wearing. I got this really cool shirt in Portland, Oregon. I got to go to this great movie store called Movie Madness. I highly recommend checking it out if you're in that area or you visit there. They basically have a museum in there. They have stuff from City Lights and The Untouchables and E.T. and all these great movies, clothing, props, set piece things, and they sell these really cool shirts with a few different famous movie couples. This is my Casablanca zombie shirt. I love it. You can buy it there, and you should definitely go and buy one and rent movies from them and check out their website. I'll put the link below so that way you know about it. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Also, wouldn't hurt if you liked, shared, and subscribed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back in a week with more movies. Thanks.